Go live. Watch blue. Hit chat. There are all my friends. There are all my friends. Wrong one. Right one. La la la. Bum bum bum. Bum bum bum. Bum 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 bum. Ba da da dum bum bum ba dum ba ba dum. Bum 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 ba da bum 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 ba da da bum ba da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum ba da 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 dum bum ba da da ba da 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 dum da dun da da dum ba da dun da dun da dun da da dun 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 dun. Hi, hi. How are you? You're all looking good. Look at all my friends, all my Facebook friends, and all my mighties. Yes, we are live. Hello, Robin and Dolly and Pamela, Wisconsin, and oh, I love it. I just love where everybody's from. New Mexico, and hello and Facebook, Saratoga Springs, New York, Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, and Toronto. More Ontario, wonderful Tennessee with heart, Washington, Maryland, South Carolina. You bet. San Francisco, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Detroit, Massachusetts. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all. I love it. Hi, Elaine. Hello, Stanford, Berkeley, Middle Tennessee, not just any old Tennessee, but the middle of Tennessee. Hello from Central Florida. Pam from Wisconsin. Love it. Love it. Wonderful to see you all, folks. As you know, I do this every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and I do it because I love this. I love studying materia medica. I love teaching homeopathy. This is my, well, yeah, passion. I don't know. Passion sounds so trite now, doesn't it? It's what it feeds me. Let's say that. It nourishes me. And I hope it nourishes you too. Because if you don't know me, my name is Joette Calabrese, and I'm here to help you, to teach you, to kind of make this more dynamic, this education of homeopathy. And anyone can read a materia medica, and of course, I urge you to do so. I hope that you're doing that on a regular basis. But I try to make, give it a little more life, breathe a little freshness into it, because there's actually a human behind it. Because there are humans behind all of these materia medicas and all the information that we know about materia medicas, or that we know that that's in the materia medicas. There are many different authors. There are many concordance where there's several authors together. You can get my materia medica if you're not familiar with it. Here it is. You can get it on my website, but you needn't have this. I'll be reading from it tonight. You can use materia medicas, or you can just follow the way that I think. And each author has a slightly different take, slightly different way of looking at these homeopathic medicines, which is lovely, because it does make this more dynamic. It does make it more alive, more human. And so tonight we are going to talk about, yikes, hives. They can be scary if you've never experienced them before. They can be scary even if you have experienced them in the past, depending on where they present. So, you don't know when they might show up, and they're more common than one might think. And when they happen to you, it feels like you're the only one in the world. But to be honest, it's a very common reaction, not a good reaction, but it also can be an indicator for you. It can be an indicator of a couple things. It can tell you, if someone in your family or you get hives, that something you've just gotten into, something extrinsic, perhaps soap that you just used, perhaps it's shellfish, perhaps it's strawberries. Something doesn't have to be something that's food. It could be pesticides from walking past someone's lawn who still, believe it or not, still uses pesticides on their lawns, which amazes me. People still do that after all these years. But at any rate, people still do it, and others can get hives. And And hives are generally, they are not dangerous, but like any condition, it can go to an extreme. And so hives can become dangerous. Generally, you know right away. If you get a hive here and a hive here and a hive on your belly or something around your leg, generally that's where it's going to stay. But if they start all around the mouth and the lips start to swell and they may not even look like hives, it may just be an allergic reaction, anaphylaxis, the lips swell, the tongue swells, the uvula, the little punching bag in the back starts to swell, the throat starts to swell, then you know now we're into dangerous territory, my friends. And so, but we're going to start with just plain old garden variety hives and talk about that. All righty. So it can also be this medicine we're going to talk about tonight is Urtica urens. So cool. Aren't these words wonderful? Excuse me while I take a sip of water. All right. People are saying hello, pioneers and Wednesday wonders. Yvonne says that's so great. Okay, Urtica urens. Urtica is the first word, Urtica or Urtica, but Urtica is the way I pronounce it. Urens, Urens, is the second word, Urtica urens. And it's made from stinging nettle, which, by the way, if you have any interest or information on botanicals, it's made from stinging nettles. And stinging nettles are one of the best herbs around. Now, many years ago, long before I learned about homeopathy, I wasn't married at the time. My family consisted of my parents, my brother, and me, and my aunt, who I was pretty close to, my godmother. But pretty much it was just the four of us. And so one day I decided I'm going to write down all the little niggly things that each member of my family suffered from. You know, maybe a little rash once in a while. My brother had a bad knee occasionally, et cetera, et cetera. And I went through all of the items and I actually put together a grid. And then I went through all the botanicals that I thought could be considered. What botanicals might each of my family members be best taking? And so I found oat straw and garlic and colt's foot, etc. But guess what came up across the board for all of the conditions that anything in my family had? It was stinging nettles. Now we call it stinging because it does sting. It's prickly. It's horrible feeling when you. Now some people love the feeling. I don't know that I would love that feeling, but it's a strange feeling when the plant is fresh and it grows wild in the fields and meadows, the wayside. I actually tried to grow it a number of times in my meadow when I lived out in the country, and for some reason I couldn't get it to grow. It must be certain kind of soil. It's not really a persnickety type plant. It really grows just about anywhere, but for some reason I just didn't have any luck with it. But at any rate, it is one of the best medicines, or should say botanicals, in its gross form, stinging nettles, not Urtica urens in the potency, not when it's been made into homeopathic medicine, but let's just stay with the botanicals right now. It is one of the best herbs for during pregnancy. So during my pregnancies, particularly because my first one, particularly because I knew really nothing about homeopathy and I knew a good deal about botanicals. So I used to make nettles tea, big jugs of it and drink it throughout the day, every day. It's a wonderful tea that has a lot of natural vitamin K in it, which, by the way, is great for giving when the baby so that the baby does not hemorrhage after after the birth. So it's a wonderful natural vitamin K deliverer instead of an injection. Let's put it this way, a questionable injection given to a newborn. So if the mom drinks stinging nettles, it is reported to protect the child by giving the mother and child vitamin K, natural vitamin K. All right, now we've got it in stinging nettles. We've got it in a natural. And by the way, it doesn't sting when you make it into a tea. When you make it, it's also a pot vegetable or a pot herb where you can put it in your pot with your soup and you can eat it. It does not sting. It doesn't cause any of the discomforts that it does when it's still fresh and alive in the ground and still green and moist. Once you cook it or once you dehydrate it, such as when you make it into a tea and then make the tea, the dried leaves into, mix it with hot water, of course. Now it's at a different level, and all the stinging properties are eliminated. So if you've ever touched stinging nettles, it's the sensation that you want to get rid of when you have, for example, hives or even prickly heat. So this is a great medicine in homeopathic formula to be used. Usually I use it in a 30th potency, and it's excellent for just that. So let me read from my Materia Medica. As its name suggests, Urtica urine is the leading remedy for urticaria. Urticaria means hives. Urtica urens, urticaria. When you see an outbreak of pale or red raised itchy bumps, generally brought on by an allergic trigger, reach for your bottle of Urtica urens, 630 or 200. I usually use a 30. It also relieves a wide range of skin issues, including itching, burning, regardless of whether or not they are hives, or it's even prickly heat. Itching, burning, and stinging from burns, minor burns, not serious burns, minor burns, rashes, prickly heat, of course, hives, and even insect stings. So remember that what we're looking for are the distinct symptoms that it causes. Okay, given this condition is an allergic reaction, the addition of Bovista, Bovista, Bovista 200 is often given. Now, let's say this is an allergic reaction. It's not prickly heat. It's actually from urticaria, hives, because someone has just had, say, I don't know, strawberries, okay, or too many strawberries. Sometimes it's okay to have some, but for other people, it is a problem, and they start getting hives. If you see that kind of a reaction, then you use Urtica urens. I would use it in a 30th potency. And I personally, depending on how severe it is, if it's just one hive here or there, it's nothing. And you could just take a dose of it every few hours. But if the person is covered in hives, now we jump to, and now I would use a 30th potency every 15 minutes for the first hour. That gives it kind of a step forward so that you can kind of catch your breath. And then once you do that, then we also can use Bovista 200. Now, why Bovista 200? It is a wonderful medicine for allergic reactions. And we talked about it earlier, 2 years ago, when I first started teaching from my Materia Medica, because I went in alphabetical order. You can go back and backwards, go backwards and find Bovista. Now, what we would do is use Bovista 200 maybe twice a day if these are severe hives. If it looks like it's a reaction that's really gotten out of control. And you can give Bovista every other day or so for an extended, or every day, depending on how severe it is. If it's very severe, I would use it once a day. If it's not so severe, then I would use it every other day. Meanwhile, you're still using the Urtica urens on a regular basis every few hours, or every 15 minutes for the first hour, and then every few hours. And now you're integrating Bovista and you're alternating both of them. Okay, for an extended period of time, until you see enough improvement where you can say to yourself, okay, I got it. I think this is under control. Now, instead of Urtica urens every 3 hours, I think I can go to every 6 hours. What we want to see always is a halting of the progression of the condition. Let's start with that, okay? We halt the progression of the condition. So instead of getting more and more and more hives, and it's growing and growing, now we've got the same number of hives. They don't look as angry. They're not as fierce looking or acting. And the person can calm down a little bit, because hives can cause a kind of a frenzy of disposition. The person can become so itchy and so agitated that they go into some kind of it's a type of frenzy. Not always, but it can go to that. And then we're using the Bovista, let's say if it was very severe, twice a day. Maybe on the second day, we're going to, excuse me, not twice a day, once a day. And then on the second day, we're using it again another day. And by the third day, maybe you can skip Bovista and see how it goes. We're always looking for that sweet spot. I want you to be watching when you use the correct medicines. What are you observing? Do You see the person calming down, their shoulders are dropping, the swelling is going down. Now we know that we're moving in the right direction for hives. Now, Urtica urens is a specific medicine for an allergic reaction, and this is a writer-downer if I ever heard of one. It's for an allergic reaction to shellfish. Don't say, well, I've had shellfish before and it never bothered me. That's irrelevant. If the shellfish that you've just eaten causes urticaria, it matters not what your system was doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, etc. So this can actually be life-saving. So I would urge everyone to make sure they own this medicine. It's in most kits, but you might want it in a 30, a 200. And to be honest, if you know someone in your family who has an allergy to shellfish that's dangerous, and I'll tell you what I mean by dangerous. If it's dangerous, I would own this in a 1M as well. Now, what kind of danger? Well, I touched on it a few minutes ago. The lips swell, the tongue might swell, the uvula might swell, the throat might swell, and the person is having difficulty breathing. It doesn't have to be all of those. It doesn't have to be lips, tongue, uvula, and throat. It could be just the uvula. It could be just the lips. It could be just the tongue. When one sees that, then we instantly start using Urtica urens. Now, if it is going back here, personally, if I had the 1M, I would use the 1M. If I didn't, I would definitely use the 200. And if all you've got is a 30, I think a 30 would work too. In fact, I shouldn't say think. I know 30 would work. It does work. You bet. Now, Urtica urens is similar in many ways to Apis. Apis mellifica is made from honeybee, and that has swellings as well. Apis often has swellings that are edematous. So you'll see under the eyes, it gets swollen and bag-like. It's like a puffiness with edema, or above the eyes, around the eyes, or there can be edema all around the lips. And so Apis can also be a very good choice for anaphylaxis. Now, having said that, shellfish, Urtica urens is specific for shellfish. And that's why I point that out. It doesn't mean that it can't help with others. It just means of all of the specifics, this is the one. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's an absolute. It's just this is the one that is best known. In your situation, you might find that that's going to be different, that you've used Urtica urens for shellfish and it didn't make enough of a change. Then, okay, then you might go ahead and try Apis. There's no doubt about it. Now, someone says, what about anaphylaxis from other foods, such as bacon? Well, do we mean anaphylaxis where it's swelling? Yes. And it's usually not the bacon, although it could be. It's usually the ingredients that the bacon is made with. So you're going to be looking at how it's presenting. Urtica urens generally has the prickling and the sensation of heat and the sensation of itching, burning, stinging sensation. Generally, that's what you're going to find with Urtica urens. Apis is more pain, burning, or not even burning, or not necessarily pain, but edema. So I would compare one with edema for Apis and Urtica urens more like hives, like more circumscribed areas. Okay. All right, let's see what we've got here. I want to make sure that I cover a lot of the folks on Facebook, because last week I couldn't see you all. When do you choose histominum and Apis over to Urtica urens? Now, histominum is broad. Histominum is because it's an essentially a much more intelligent antihistamine. So one could use histominum. And I'm going to tell you that you want to read, this is what I would suggest that you do. You get Urtica urens and you read it in the Materia Medica. Then you read Apis. Then you go back and read Urtica urns. Then you go back and read Apis. And you pick out those areas that seem to be the most noteworthy in the person that you've been working with, yourself or your family member or whatever. And that will help. And then write up, get some 3x5 cards. I use them all the time to help me remember things. Get one for Apis, one for Urtica urns, and then put them in the kit. If there's someone in your family who you think this could affect, by all means, I urge you to have those cards right there so you can distinguish between the two. Now, let's say you don't know which one to use. You're really at a loss, and the person is really suffering, and they're going down. Would I use both? More often than not, we say no to that. But I'm going to be honest with you. I actually think if it's very, very serious, you wouldn't use both at the same moment. But I would use one and then wait a few minutes and then use the other and give it a try and see what kind of reaction you see. When we're in an acute state, the body's going to react faster than if it were a chronic condition, generally speaking. So you should be able to read what happened after the last dose of the last remedy. You love my remedy cards. That's great. Thanks. No, this is not a shingles remedy. Shingles is a whole different thing. That's a virus, and I have talked about shingles on my blog, so do take advantage of that. All right, let's see if we have any other questions here. Is there a difference in the kind of itching they have? Yeah, it is a kind of a different itching because this is a stinging, prickling itching generally. Okay. I use Stephosagria for angry mosquito bites. You bet. You know what? Stephosagria is great for mosquito bites, and so is ledum. And even sometimes these remedies, even Urtica urns can be useful if there's a hive-like reaction. All right. Does it work for an allergy to being cold? It doesn't matter. It doesn't. See, what I'm telling you is that Urtica urns is very specific for shellfish and others and other sources. But that doesn't mean we have to have a specific medicine for each cause. Yes, cold. Sometimes snow getting in the between the mittens and the snowsuit. I've seen it causes hives. Absolutely. So I would use either Urtica urns or Apis for that. That is more likely, in my experience, to be Apis. But I would certainly look at Urtica urns as a possibility as well. So it doesn't matter so much what caused it, except in this situation, Urtica urns is very specific for shellfish. Okay, my son has anaphylactic hives with swelling of the face after touching a cat. Sulfur helps the best. You bet. That's great. Listen, I don't have my repertory right here. It's back there, so you can see it. No, it's that way. My repertory. And if I looked up itching hives or itching from cat or itching and swelling of face, we're not going to find just Urtica urns. We're not going to just find Apis. We're going to find sulfur and napmure and Urtica urns and ammonium or some antimonium crude, and we're going to find arsenicum. We're going to find a lot of different medicines. I'm just telling you what about each of these medicines specifically. So don't be surprised if something else works just as well. Okay, since I discovered Apis for mosquito and flea bites, which used to cause huge red hot itching swellings that took a month to heal, the reactions have gotten less and less over 2 years. Thank you, Alice, for bringing that up, because that's exactly what happens. As we use these medicines, we see less intensity the next time it occurs, lasting for a shorter period of time the next time it occurs, and a larger space between its occurrences. That's how we know we're healing. It's the opposite with conventional medicaments. Conventional drugs will take care of the condition at that moment, but the next time it comes around, I practically guarantee it's going to be worse. It'll be a lot more intense, those symptoms. It'll last a longer period of time more likely, and it's going to happen more frequently. Anybody who's ever had any situation with urinary tract infections, never had urinary tract infections the whole life. The person gets a urinary tract infection, they use the ubiquitous, overly used antibiotics, and lo and behold, that's not the end of it. Now they get another one and another one and another one, another one. They keep treating antibiotic, keep treating month after month or year after year. And lo and behold, now the person ends up with chronic urinary tract issues. So it doesn't surprise me. So homeopathy goes the exact opposite of when we use drugs. It's the opposite. I want you to understand that this is so different. Okay. I just bought one called Syzygium that also states it is good for prickly heat. Could this be used also if urticarians doesn't work? I've never used Syzygium that way, but certainly, yes, one certainly could. If a medicine doesn't act at a 30th potency for something like this, when it's not a specific, this is not a specific protocol, then I would just go to a higher potency, use it more frequently. I have many people who say to me, I used that medicine and it didn't work. My question is, what potency did you use? How frequently did you use it? And over what period of time? Because saying a medicine didn't act doesn't give me enough information, nor should it you. You should always be digging one step further. Tell me how you used it, what potency, what frequency, and over what period of time. Now, when they say, well, I used it every hour for, 8 hours and I saw no change at all. Okay, now I understand. Now we go on. Now we move. But before that happens, we want to make sure that it's being taken care of, that it's at least being addressed fully and properly. What is your opinion of pork? I love pork. I'm sorry. I think it's nutritious. I know a lot of people think pork is very, very is dangerous. I personally disagree. Tell Spain that. Tell all of China. Tell Italy. That's all of Spain is all about pork. And those who believe in the Mediterranean diet, are they going to eliminate Spain? I think that if someone doesn't have trouble with pork, I think it's not a problem. Okay. Let's see. Do you mean every day for 2 weeks? I mean, I think you might be talking about Bovista. If someone has an allergic reaction, it tells me that there's an allergic constitution going on here. My guess is if the person has an allergic reaction and they need Bovista for this particular event, that they have an allergic problem in general. And Bovista, if you took my allergic course, and I urge you, if you're suffering from allergies, I really urge you to consider taking that course. It's just titled Allergic. And I go into it in great detail on how to stack the schedule, how to put together the medicines in one schedule, how often to use them, what to watch for after 6 to 8 weeks. Because I'm telling you something, and this is what I do on my blog. I give you the very simple, here's the condition, here's the protocol, here's the remedy, the potency, and the frequency, so that you've got it available to you. The more complex conditions I don't discuss on my blog because it needs some underpinnings and understanding of something that requires more depth of understanding before you can go on. Because I will tell you, the easy part, my friends, in homeopathy is knowing which medicine to use. Now, that's not classical. Classical, I think, makes it rather difficult to figure out which medicine it is. But the easy part, the way that I do it, because I give you the protocol specific for the condition, that's the easy part. I not only give you the name of the remedy, but I give you the potency and the frequency because I give you the protocols. The hard part in homeopathy is, what do we do after the medicine has been observed? In other words, if it's a chronic condition after 6 to 8 weeks, what is it we're observing and what do we do with that information? Where do we go from there? Do we pivot? Are we satisfied that it's moving along, but perhaps not fast enough, but it's still moving along? Do we observe some shifts, but not enough of a shift? So that's what I teach in the courses. That's how far and in depth I go into the courses. All right, let's see some more questions here. Would APIS affect more than mucous? Yes, of course, absolutely. Because APIS also affects under the eyes, and that's not the mucosa. That's still facial skin. Yes, I remember your story of using urticarians when you swam in the ocean and got stung. Yes, absolutely. So it's great for sea, animals that sting. Okay. Let's just see. Would it work for demographic urticaria and hives just from rubbing the skin? Yes, it possibly could. Yes, it possibly could. Yes. Yep. That's when, you just run your finger across the skin and it leaves a mark. I just got the repertory 4th edition. I'm having trouble finding where to look up blood clot in the calf. Also, what they all mean. Where do I find help on the subject? The best way to do that? Look in the back. Oh, wait, did you get the rep? Yes. Look in the back. Look in the index and start looking under calf. Also look under vascular. I'm pretty sure he's got a section on vascular. I can't remember between the 3rd and 4th edition of that repertory by Robin Murphy. Just poke around. You'll find it. I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's just see. Maybe a higher potency. Okay. People are speaking to each other. Which remedy would help with very itchy hives caused by stress? Okay, that's Josephine. Okay. Come on, Mighties, tell her. Help Josephine out. Help Josephine. Okay. What about itching? Well, itching in general without hives, look on my blog. I talk about that a lot. And I also talk about that in the skin course if you don't want to go that far. Random large hives. My son, 11 years old, going for blood work tomorrow. He is generally put on Benadryl and Zyrtec when he has an episode. Is there something natural I can use? Well, you're in the right place, my dear Rebecca. All righty. Does it work for an allergy to bean coal? Yeah, we talked about that. Let's just see what else. Is there a difference in the kind of itching they have? Yes, I discussed that already. I say I went up to make sure I didn't catch it, just in case I didn't catch everyone. All right. Well, histaminem is used for, this is a question from Donna. Histaminem is used for when it's a histamine reaction, and that's what we're talking about here. When you're not sure what to do, sometimes it can be a very, very valuable medicine. And I like to use plain old histaminem 30 for histamine when there's a histamine reaction. But I find that and that could be very valuable. But I find that if you can find exactly the best homeopathic medicine, which is Urtica urens or Apis, you will get better results, generally speaking. Using histaminem is actually not homeopathic, even though it's diluted, potentized, succussed, etc. Okay. What about hives on the chest that are not bothersome and come and go? Well, you decide. See, here's the thing. When an issue is not bothersome, I don't know that I would treat it. You know what I mean? This is medicine. This is not like vitamins or anything like that. This is medicine. So we use it as medicine and we treat it that way. Okay. Urtica urens is spelled with a U, not E. That's why you're having trouble, Linda. Urtica, U-R-T-I-C-A, Urtica, U-R. All righty, folks. Let's just see. I'll see if I can just help one more person on Facebook because I felt as though last time. Here we go. Alice, you've got it. Nice job. Let's see. I've been using antimonium crude 6 for 4 months, 2 times a day for herpes simplex has reduced the frequency and severity a little. I wish there was something that worked a lot faster. Well, I talk about that. There's a lot more information on that in my course on skin. I'm sorry, I can't go into it too deeply here. And I've also talked about that, by the way, on my blog. So check that out first. If that doesn't help you, then by all means, you consider the skin course. But let me also tell you, Alice, that herpes takes a long time. I'm going to be honest with you. It takes a very long time to uproot. All right. Very good. It's already 8:34. I should be going on. I've got a whole class. I think I've got about 50 people that I'm meeting with in a few minutes. And if you don't know about my Gateway to Homeopathy study groups, by all means, folks, check it out. Meet other people on Zoom, and then they ask me to join them. Sometimes at the end of their 8-week study, they'll use my book. It's very inexpensive. So I'm going to urge you, if you haven't done that, especially if you're new, but even if you're not, you'll learn things that you didn't think you would learn in this kind of a group. And so with that, I say Thank you for joining me. Thank you for inviting me into your home, and God bless all of you. See you next Monday night. Bye.